Remix. 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 Remix.
Well, actually, old RD Kung Fu, we never pay ear doctors. So, yeah, the StreamYard is tripping. So just give us a second, guys. But welcome to the Remix Morning Show with me, your favorite person named Amber. And we have some guests today. I think Jared is gonna come through. We're working on that too. Geechee stood us up because he has other stuff going on. But we're poetry in the chat that you want me to read, I can do it.
All right, we on.
I know that's right.
Hey, everyone. Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. I could not
Hi,
let
ear doctor. I'm
How
gonna be
you
nice
doing?
to save the day.
All right. How's everybody today?
I'm doing good. You know, it's always a great day to be black and be me. So,
All right. All right. So we see nobody showed up, huh?
well, I showed up.
Yes, you
So,
did. And Lawrence. What's good, Lawrence?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Okay. I
well,
didn't.
Geechee told us yesterday he couldn't come. I don't know what he doing that's more important because I mean, I'm not the most important person in his life, but you know.
Oh my goodness. I definitely did not expect to be here this morning, but hey.
But since you are, we appreciate you in your white t-shirt.
I see we rocking white tees this morning. Anyway, yeah, we are. So no word from Gerard.
He was trying to get on. He was able to start the stream, but his internet connection wasn't good enough.
Okay.
So he's trying to figure that out. But he was gonna have to leave early today anyways. And I said, that's fine, because I can stop 30 minutes by myself. I don't actually need you. But I can't end the show. So then I told him to call you, and then you just happened to show up. So actually it works out great.
You know, I always gotta check on my baby, make sure it's up and at him. So I seen that it was 8:00 and I didn't get the the
Wow.
YouTube.
Thought you cared about me.
You know, I care about the show. You part of the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, how was Lawrence? Tell us how's it been?
Good. I was out late yesterday. So actually, a few weeks ago, there was a guest on when I was on. Rashim. She had the world premiere of her documentary "Baltimore Still Rising" about the Baltimore uprising 10 years ago. So that premiered last night. So I guess it was probably about 400 people at the Santa Theater in Baltimore. So yeah, she did dozens of interviews with elected officials, activists, all types of folks on the ground at the time, putting it in the context of Baltimore's history of police violence and just talking about some of the changes in activism and getting some of the stories that, it's funny because to me it was I've been hearing these stories for like years because, being in the inside living it, but I realized I don't think the average person has had any access to like some of the behind the scenes stories and experiences and series of what happened in Baltimore 10 years ago. So she's going to be doing some more screenings, one in June 19th at the Santa Theater in Baltimore. If folks want to come out and see that, and I'd highly recommend it because, it's probably about what, 90 minutes, somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours of just like interviews with people with the context and experiences on the ground in Baltimore that kind of give you some analysis beyond what traditional news stories or other documentaries might give you. So.
All right.
Yeah, she talked about it on the episodes.
Okay. Amber, how's it going? How's it been? You was in Vegas or somewhere?
I was in Vegas with my little joint. It was great.
Your little shit. Your little shit. You was in Vegas with your little what?
Junk.
Yeah. Okay.
I know the kids these days are saying fine shit, but it just isn't cute to me. I don't know.
It is. I can't do it neither.
It's not cute to me. I said, if it was a cuter like little, I would go with it. But I was like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to Vegas with my little joint, and got to do like just interesting stuff I hadn't done before. I never rode a Ferris wheel before, so I rode a Ferris wheel. That motherfucker was high up. I was afraid. I was slightly scared at the very top, but I survived because I was thinking of you guys and what was going to happen if I don't show up. I'm thoughtful.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I went to go see Sinners last night, so I had a nice experience. I'm gonna come back and talk about it Tuesday.
I'm gonna go see it today, actually, at 1 p.m.
Okay. Well, yeah, getting that matinee rate. I see you. I like it.
Well, I'm not paying for it, so.
That's why guys always be like, do I want to start dating this person? I have to spend all the money.
Them tickets wasn't cheap because they got IMAX, so I need the IMAX.
Guys, boy, it's an investment deal out here nowadays dating, boy, especially if you're a guy.
Not an
Spend all the
investment
money.
deal. Some people ask what a junt is. Junt is like, for Memphis niggas, junt is like person, place, or thing. It can be used in any reference. So like that junt over there, that's my little junt. I know that junt was fire. Like it's just a interchangeable word, similar to like John. Yeah,
John, like in Philly. Yeah,
but better.
Yeah.
Better.
There y'all go. Tribal wars. But I did sneak in my snacks. I had some popcorn. I snuck in. I had some fruit, and I
about sneaking in some birria tacos.
And I got put some beer in some water bottles. So yeah, it was a great experience. It was dark water, cloudy water, but it was a good experience. Like I said, I'll talk about it more. But other than that, it was some good scenes in it. The directing part, because I like cinematography and all that stuff. It was great.
Me too.
So big up to that. So Lawrence, what's going on today? I know you said
he was tapping in to talk about something.
Yeah, what was you tapping in to talk about today?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I've been in conversation with Jared. I don't know if he shared with you all the email I sent.
Yeah, you've been sending it to all of us. I've been reading them all.
Okay. Yeah. So about a month ago, so I'm Lawrence with LBS, we're a grassroots think tank. We do advocacy in Baltimore, and so working on policy issues that impact the community. Our general feeling is that doing work on the ground, trying to have conversations with folks that consume leftist media in the podcast space about how to dissect conversations happening in the podcast space and connect it to issues on the ground in ways that maybe challenge some of the preconceived understandings and notions of many folks in the audience. And I think a good example of that, linking national politics to local politics, systems that we have some expertise on, was a conversation I had about a month ago where, if you know Brianna Joy Gray, former press secretary for Bernie Sanders' campaign, she had Jamal Bowman on her podcast. He was a congressman who was defeated by AIPAC, representing New York City. It used to be mostly the Bronx. He got redistricted into Westchester and was defeated by a pro-Israeli candidate. And, she's really trying to push him on things like force the vote. And he's trying to focus more on, just generally talking about AIPAC and other things. And then she had another person on like a week after, Kashant Sawant from Seattle, a former state council person, now has an independent organization, Workers Strike Back, and was really like very vitriolic, attacking Jamal Bowman, like calling him a sellout, saying he was using identity politics to deflect from criticisms of, him being too tied to the Democratic Party. And I just thought that conversation, the juxtaposition between those two was important because we had just came from Seattle for a conference to talk about violence prevention, and it was actually in her district. So I realized that we actually had personal experience of people in her district and some analysis that may be demonstrative to think through some of the ideas of things that we say about the left needing to be responsive to grassroots Black community concerns in order to persuade grassroots Black folk to have a leftist politics and some of the limitations of sort of abstract leftist analysis. And I thought that conversation was a good example of that. So for example, basic stuff, she edits down Jamal's interview to 25 minutes, and then she has Kashant on the next week to speak for 90. And in the stuff that's cut out in the extended interview with Jamal Bowman, it leaves out the fact that he wasn't even in Congress when Force the Vote happened. He had just gotten elected. So her just really bashing him on Force the Vote and him being why?
Can you explain what Force the Vote is?
So Force the Vote. So when 2020, with the election of Biden, Pelosi had to come up for the leadership of the Democratic Party. And so the idea was that the House Democrats, the squad, could force a vote on Medicare for all in order to, as a precondition, to condition their support for Pelosi on her bringing it up for a vote. Now,
okay.
So folks like leftist podcasters said this is a great plan, this is strategic. So if people vote against Medicare for all, then we can know who they are and primary them. And Bowman's like, we didn't have anyone to beat Pelosi. We knew it wasn't going to pass. What's the plan? And Bree constantly says the plan was to force the vote. The plan was to expose them. The plan was to something. And they kept going back and forth. And it's like, what comes after that? What's the plan? And she's like, but we did the plan. We did the organizing. We had months of town halls. And I think it was very demonstrative, a distinction between, because they kept talking in circles, where for Bree as a podcaster and a leftist, the couple of months of online organizing and the abstract idea of putting Democrats on record voting for or against Medicare for all is sufficient to count as a plan. Where I think for folks like us, when we had a plan to do like reparations for war on drugs, that was years and years in the making, where it was like, we know who's going to introduce the amendment. We know who we have to pressure in committee. We know who we have to go to with the Black Caucus in committee to push back against the senator who has the chair of the committee. And that was a plan that formed over years. And I think that's a big part of it. What was happening is that for Bowman, a plan requires much deeper political analysis and strategic engagement with actually delivering something material. While for Bree, it was very useful symbolically to get the Democrats on record as sellouts, and the media pressure of them exposing themselves as sellouts, that in of itself is a plan. So I thought that was just very demonstrative.
I don't think that's realistic. Like, that doesn't actually get the goods. Like, you don't actually win anything from doing that.
Yeah, and again, it was very adversarial. So the larger context of this is like, she ends up being very adversarial to Jamal Bowman and very conciliatory to Kishant Sawant, because basically Jamal's like not a real leftist, and Kishant is like, ooh, because she's like radical, right? And again, just like the degree of vitriol that like Kishant comes on next week and basically makes fun of Jamal, being like, Jamal, because he's a black dude, like he's like a 40-something black guy. And she's like, yeah, he does his yo homeboy act and acts like he's down for the people. And like, just
that's how he talks, but still,
yeah,
I do think he be yelling too fucking much. And I agree with that dude from the Jeff Jackson guy from North Carolina, who talked about how, like, you know, you don't have to like yell and scream to get people's attention. You could just sit in a chair and talk to people. I literally do it every day on my Instagram. I just literally pick up my phone and start talking. I don't have to scream and yell. And that always turned me off. Like when they were doing those press conferences or like interrupting Congress stuff, I'd be like, well, why are you yelling?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in the context of my analysis, I hear what you're saying. The left sees deployments of Black affect as a form of identity politics to deflect from a criticism. So I think that was her point, was that he was being criticized on not going hard on Pelosi, not going hard on other stuff. And he kind of had this reflexive response. And just like the vitriol which with the left views deployments of Black identity as if it always is inherently deflecting from radical leftist criticism. I think it's one of those things that verges on anti-Blackness sometimes, because the thing about Bowman is that he and Cori Bush stood firm on something the left really cared about, which was Build Back Better. So they actually voted against Build Back, the infrastructure bill, because it didn't include Build Back Better. But there wasn't the level of support for them from the larger left for that, as there was criticism of him for forced to vote. And so it's one of these things where there is just this sort of like tacit anti-Blackness in parts of the left that sees Black politicians with a degree of suspicion, because there's always this assumption they're going to pull the identity politics card and sell out. And I just thought it was very interesting, because she was like so adamant that him talking like, you know, basically talking about Jimmy Dore specifically. And because it wasn't about deflecting criticism from his politics. It was Jimmy Dore is essentially an asshole. And the way that he led the movement, the face of the movement for forced to vote, like Bree got really angry, because basically Jamal's reaction was like, when I heard that, I saw Jimmy Dore attacking us and I dismissed it. And Bree's like, well, what about me? What about all the other Black and brown people who said forced to vote? And I think it's one of those things that was also very demonstrative to me, was that if you are Jamal Bowman, you're dealing with so much other stuff.
You don't even know who that girl is.
You don't even know, you barely know who Jimmy Dore is, right? Like forced to vote, it was clear it was barely a thing for him. And for Bree, it was like a traumatic moment for her because she, as an online person in politics, saw institutional people being like forced to vote is stupid as a personal attack. And for Jamal, facing, people on the ground, constituents, people mobilizing money against him, the online leftist space is still so marginal in its real ability to impact politics that people are taking things very personally. Because it was clear that he barely even thought about forced to vote. And it was just also very demonstrative about this thing that was a central part of Bree's life. Was barely a blip on his radar.
She's the Black woman, right?
Breonna Joy Gray is a Black woman. She went to Harvard Law. She kind of has a podcast called Bad Faith. It really is a space where she is a Black comms person, really tries to get into the power of media and messaging to push leftist movements. So she's also kind of gone beyond, she's gotten really into third parties. She's less of a Democrat now. But just this obsession with the idea that what Bernie did was message to people, and that had policy impacts. So if Democrats were to message against the Democratic Party, that would shift people and change the political space. That's a big part of her argument in general. So she's asking Jamal,
how did what Bernie did shift the messaging?
Well, it shifted her, and it shifted people like her, and it shifted a lot of her friends. So I think that's part of the disconnect. Because another thing that was cut that I really took this seriously, that Bree didn't, was that she's asking Jamal, the Democrats sold you out. Why do you consider rocking with the Democrats? And he's like, my mama a Democrat, my grandmama a Democrat, my people are Democrats. So I got to go where my people are, and I have to organize them to see it in ways they can understand. And I think for people like Bree, that feels like a cop-out. When I think what he's saying, and I'm going to try to get to the material critique of what Kishant did or didn't do in Seattle, was that people see things that are existentially important for their lives, that they need it to be delivered on now. And given the inability for third parties in their mind to materially deliver in the short intermediate term, we need to figure out how to force the people to see, either force the Democrats to respond to those needs or make it clear to those people how a third party strategy is going to deliver for them materially. And I think that's what Jamal was trying to say, but Bree took it personally. Bree took it like, I'm out here saying we got to leave the Democrats alone. So people like you saying rock with the Democrats makes me look and feel crazy, makes me look and feel like they called Black women who rock with Bernie the island of misfit Black girls, right? Like mainstream Democrats basically said the real Black people rock with the real Democrats. If you rock with Bernie, it's something off with you. And again, and people like Bree took that very personally, and it was very hurtful. And a lot of Black leftists feel that way, that there's this Democratic, like Jamal said, my mom a Democrat, my grandmama a Democrat, this deep emotional connection to the Democratic Party that people use to marginalize you if you're a leftist and want to critique the Democrats. And I think that people have taken that very personally, and I'm pushing people to see that materially and strategically, that what people are really saying is that I've seen some people who call themselves Democrats deliver on stuff that was important to me. And I feel like you need to sell me on the package of goods you can deliver critiquing the Democratic Party versus other people can claim to deliver working in the Democratic Party.
That makes sense. Somebody in the chat said it was Jason Johnson who said that about Bree and Nina Turner.
Yeah, exactly. The island of misfit Black girls. And again, it becomes very emotional and it becomes very hard to see the strategic limitations of the left when they do have power, and the strategic in the minds of people in community that are organizable. And I think part of the distinction is that we believe people are organizable who are not necessarily leftist. They can be persuaded to agree with leftist policy if they see it in their material interests. When I think other people think people are more ideologically inclined to be neoliberal and institutionalist versus that's all they know. So let me see. I know we're having some tech troubles here, but I want to try to do a screen share very briefly on some of the things I found in Seattle.
If you won't let you, I can
Yeah, and I don't need to. I can talk about it, but if it pops up, great. So like I said, our organization, one of the biggest things that we do is we support funding for grassroots violence prevention institutions. And that was a big conference in Seattle last year, because Seattle actually is a relatively safe city compared to places like Baltimore. But Seattle has had a pretty big explosion of gun violence that has not responded the way other cities have responded. So in America, we had a big boost in gun violence right after the pandemic. In the past 2 years, it's dropped dramatically around the nation, but it has not dropped nearly as dramatically in Seattle, where Kashant was an elected socialist city council person. So I went back to 2020, the defund the police movement, and I found the debates over funding the police in Seattle. And she was for defund the police, but the thing she was pushing for was not grassroots violence prevention. When we say violence prevention, we mean people who may be formerly incarcerated, may be formerly part of street organizations with credibility in community, mediating conflicts upstream, squashing beefs, working with youth. These are people, we literally saw them in Seattle. And that's part of why I wanted to do this talk. Like, I saw them. Like, I talked to them. And look at the things that Kashant is saying we should shift the police budget to. It's not them. Like, it's not them. And the other thing that made me want to give this talk is Kashant, because she made it look like, again, the things they did with Fight for 15 in Seattle was so revolutionary for the Black community that she had proven the leftists were better for Black people by the value of their economic redistribution policy. But I also know in Seattle, there's something called Africatown, which is the historic Black community that is in Kashant's district, right? So that also made, I think, very important to talk about this with some degree of empiricism, because one of the biggest things that I thought was frustrating was, I know it's a little small, but on here, some of the things that she wants to give money to is community-based research and funding for the Green New Deal. Now, a lot of people experience community-based research as very extractive in the Black community. You fund researchers to come in, they kind of pay you to do some data collection, but the white academics or whoever the academics are control the research questions, control who publishes it. And they oftentimes view the community almost like a science experiment, and then they extract the knowledge and leave the community. So the idea of researching community as social justice, it shows a limited understanding of social justice. But the real thing was the funding for therapists in schools, and who they got was grad students. So they had grad students come in to serve the historic Black high school, Garfield, in Seattle.
They didn't even have their certifications yet.
Well, and also I think it's just very, very demonstrative of the limitations of leftism, because it's still very credentialist. It's still very, it's the idea that what the rich people have, the poor people need, as opposed to the poor people need, the Black people need the power to self-determine for themselves what's going to improve their communities. Because there are people in community that could do those services better than a grad student, that have more organic connection to the specific Black community that Garfield High School represents. Instead of funding them, she funded University of Washington grad students to come into the high school. And not only does that not work, that actually engenders resentment from the Black community, because people in the community know there are people that deserve that money, that can do a better, more culturally appropriate job. But because the leftism is so abstract, it basically,
they don't want to pay them.
Come in. Say it again.
They don't want to pay them.
Well, I don't think if they don't want to pay them, I think that they don't have a precise focus on community self-determination at the heart of their politics. Their funding is, their vision is economic and materialist. So any money that goes from the police to Africatown is sufficient from a materialist perspective. If you have a Black community self-determination perspective, making an explicit focus on Black grassroots organizations getting that money is important, because what that does, to kind of wrap up, and I'm actually making decent time, so I'm glad I'm not getting too bogged down here. What that does is leave the space for investing in community organizations open to the more Liz Warren centrist so-called progressives, and even the neoliberal Democrats. Because there was an amendment to fund grassroots violence prevention orgs in Africatown, but it was not from Kashant Sawant. It was from like the white Liz Warren progressive, right? And if we actually look at what happened when Kashant stepped down, she was replaced by a Black neoliberal Democrat. And so I think it's important to see that if the theory of politics Bree and Kashant seem so convinced is better for Black and brown people, why would Kashant's successor be a Black neoliberal Democrat? And specifically with the Black sections like Africatown voting not for the progressive that she wanted to replace her, but for the Black neoliberal. I think it's because that the violence in her part of the city actually became the most violent part of the city. So the violence stayed high, and it led Black people to say, we're in a state of emergency. Our kids are shooting and dying. I have to go with the Black neoliberal Democrat, not because I'm ideologically pro-police, because they at least know enough to talk about funding community pathways, funding the grassroots Black-led organizations, while Kashant is trying to get money to study the Green New Deal and study and do community-based participatory research on stuff that we in the community already know. And we've already built programs based upon what we know is actually going to fix the problem, right? So while people like Jamal Bowman and AOC have been very explicit about funding grassroots violence prevention programs, and so when they say, like, we're trying to be pragmatic and engage the Democratic Party, it is to get concessions like funding violence prevention that people like Kashant don't even know would actually be. The left should dominate this issue, is what I'm saying.
They said you saying that Lady Nine wrong in the chat. So is it Kashant or Kashama?
I'm sorry. Let me get the pronunciation. Let me get the pronunciation right.
I got you.
Oh, yeah, it's Kashama Sawant. I'm sorry. So Kashama, what I'm saying is that the left should dominate this issue, right? When it comes to redistribution of resources, it is the issue that the left should have the advantage over the neoliberal Democrats. But when the left is focused on redistribution in such an abstract way, and it's very adamant about critiquing neoliberal Democrats as if they do nothing, people in community who are trying to make a decision about whose vision of politics to choose are looking at funding to study the Green New Deal, funding for grad students to come to the Black high school, versus funding from Schumer, from AOC, and from Bowman, specifically to fund Black grassroots organizations that do violence prevention. And they say, look, do you know the people that do violence prevention? Have you built with them? Do you have political connections to those networks? Because if you are what you say you are, you should be able to beat the neoliberal Democrats in terms of policies that fund and build up that infrastructure. And some people are doing that. Again, Bowman is doing that. AOC is doing that. But there's a leftist inability to connect to some of the Black grassroots organizations that do that because they're not leftist. Yeah. Some of them are affiliated with the faith community. Some of them are affiliated with the Nation of Islam. Some of them are affiliated with people formerly in street organizations, so-called gangs. And there's just such a big disconnect between those institutions and where the left has built its power, whether that's labor, whether that's the college-educated podcast-consuming set, that we've left a lot of stuff on the table that's going to lead otherwise persuadable people to do what they did in Seattle, in Kasama's district, and vote for the neoliberals. So the last thing I want to say is, like, Trump just cut funding they cut about 350 grants. And a lot of those grants are for grassroots violence prevention organizations. Mm-hmm. So this will actually be a good organizing opportunity for the left in whatever city you are in. Like, I know there are people in Memphis that probably got their grants cut. So to have the leftists show up and say, look, we have all this anti-Trump energy. Is there a way to plug this anti-Trump energy into the left showing up for Black grassroots organizations or grassroots organizations in general, stopping the violence in community? Like, we have all this energy around decreasing violence in Baltimore that was basically like, I don't want to say a victory lap, but the mayor just the State of the City address where they basically said, we've cut the murders in half in Baltimore, in part because these programs were gotten funded and now the funding is cut. So one of the things that we're doing here in Baltimore is that we're really lobbying for the state and localities to fill the federal funding gaps and being real strategic about where we get the money from. And I think that's just a really strong example of, can the left show up for that with grassroots fundraisers, with showing up in community to support these folks, because these folks do constant community events, food giveaways, community walks. Can folks on the left show up, again, building local power for something that people in community who care about violence declining, can the left show up for that in a way that demonstrates, hey, like, we need to have a more progressive politics, because it was the neoliberal folks that are trying to make you dependent upon the foundations, make you dependent upon the public health, make you dependent upon, like, these kind of nickel and dime, like, these federal funding programs are important, but they're kind of small, right?
Yeah.
Can you build a grassroots movement as part of a radical redistribution of wealth to fund these institutions in a way that gives people on the ground to say, hey, if you're talking about getting funding to people in my community who I see doing good work, and you're saying I got to rock with Bernie or AOC or whoever to do that, now I'm listening in a way where they're not going to listen if what they're delivering is, I'm going to study the Green New Deal, and I'm going to bring grad students to come to the Black high school and try to help out the Black kids there.
Yeah, I think the critique is valid. I also think Ashy in the chat made a very good comment about how most of the leftists like Bree are not in an organization on the ground that talks to real Black people, like very online. And I do think that can also be more harmful, because you can have these good critiques, but if like you don't actually have solutions from the people who live in those communities, then it isn't realistic. And from what you said, it didn't feel like the council member had like good critiques either, because they were kind of just going off of what they felt was right, but wasn't necessarily right for the actual community.
Yeah, it's very clear to me that it's very emotional, and it should be emotional, but we have to be able to think strategically, because one of the things that again, like one of the critiques of Jamal was that he, as a Black person from the Bronx, hadn't really thought about Zionism a lot. He was critical, but wasn't like knowing a lot about the issue. So one thing he did was he voted for funding for the Iron Dome. Now, Iron Dome is a defensive missile defense system that Israel uses to stop rockets coming in from Gaza. And in his mind, it's like, yeah, I support Gaza. I have another bill to condition aid for foreign nations on not doing human rights violations. But for his mind, Iron Dome was defensive. It wasn't about attacking the people in Gaza. And what he did, he actually went to Israel with a liberal Zionist organization called J Street. And basically that changed his mind. Like, it was designed to make him a liberal Zionist. It turned him into an anti-Zionist, right? And I think that he was roundly critiqued for both the vote and the visit. And I think that understanding people like him have to go through a process of evolution, especially Black folks, because we had an incident in Baltimore where someone who ironically does violence prevention and conflict mediation work in Baltimore got invited to go to Israel to talk with conflict mediators there. And when someone found that out, someone critiqued them for basically like, this is a propaganda trip. You can't go illegitimate Israel. And they were like, hold up, don't nobody propagandize me. Like, I know what Israel is, but I have to see it for myself before I can make a determination about what's going on. Like, I can't just trust you because you telling me what it is. I have to see it for myself and make up my own mind. And the fact the left sees that is so inherently crazy. Like, we should just trust the left because they say something. Like, people have to, especially Black folks, make material personal connections and have personal experiences oftentimes before we make up our minds politically on something. And if you are a radical, hardcore anti-Zionist, you don't get to go to Israel. They don't let you in, right? So the only people you can go with are liberal Zionists sometimes, right? And again, like this, we talked to the person who was critiquing this person, and they were like, okay, I get it. As a Black grassroots person, you have your own personal experiences, but you need to see it for yourself. I shouldn't critique you because that's basically pathologizing Black people in a way that makes it look like that just shields for Zionism. And I think that that was a sophisticated example where someone from the left heard criticism about assuming Black people are too stupid, essentially, to see through Zionist propaganda, and that we don't have the right to go through our own process to figure out how to understand these issues. And when Jamal Bowman comes back, he begins to become far more consistent on the anti-Zionism votes, right? And so again, I think it's just a really good example of how the left, and again, they wanted to kick him out of DSA for the Iron Dome vote. They wanted to basically write him off as a sellout Democrat. DSA? Yeah, he was supported by DSA for his first campaign. Some people in DSA wanted to kick him out for voting for the Iron Dome, because again, that's missile defense. In his mind, it's like, well, that's defensive. I support defense. I'm not trying to give them offensive weapons, but if it's defense, like, I get it. Like, those rockets that come from Gaza can kill civilians in his mind. But it's like, well, that's actually like militarism and military industrial complex and tying Israel to America. But again, he was like, well, I was a principal in the Bronx. We kind of talked about it, but it wasn't a central issue. And he heard AIPAC, he heard people from his district very vociferously demanding the Iron Dome vote, not knowing a lot of that was legitimate. A lot of it was AstroTurf from AIPAC. So once you understand that AIPAC can essentially astroturf this bombardment of calls, then you get more context to understand that there actually is people in my district who are willing to stand up to Israel, but I need to engage them and explain to them the connections between Zionism at home and Zionism abroad and anti-Blackness at home. Like, we've been very adamant that the same forces that are attacking Palestinians are passing tough on crime policies in America to criminalize Black people. The same media institutions like Sinclair Media, which is owned by a right-wing executive chairman, and David Smith, and has Howard Friedman, the former leader of AIPAC, is on the board of Sinclair Media, that owns a bunch of local TV stations that produces pro-Israel propaganda, but mostly extremely inflammatory segments about crime in cities, pushing tough on crime policies, right? It's the same ideological framework. But I think that less
media here.
What you have Sinclair Media in Memphis?
Yeah, there's some like news stations that use them, and I tell people all the time, they're like, "You didn't see that on the news?" I was like, "No, I don't watch the news because all they do is talk about crime." When literally, people who live here will tell you that we're perfectly safe. Like, there's nothing happening.
Yeah. And I would say, as much as I hate it, I have to force myself to watch the news, because as someone trying to deconstruct the propaganda, I have to engage the propaganda to know what they're saying. I think that's a good example of the left understandably checking out. While if we want to organize our community, we have to understand they're in a media propaganda cycle where they may be less inclined to see Israel as wrong, because they believe you need force to deter people from doing bad things, because that's all they see every day on the news. That's what they
argue. I would actually argue that you don't. I think that you can actually create the news and the information that you want people to have, and they'll receive that information. And if I ever want someone to receive information about something that I don't feel like has been talked about on the news, then I'll do a news interview, because I know how to do strategic media. But they're gonna get what I want them to know directly from me, from my socials, from orgs that I'm in. I don't think that you have to watch the news to combat it, because if I'm saying what's right in the first place, I don't have to combat anything.
I understand that perspective, and I understand not wanting to give your enemy's argument any credence. What I would say is that the question is, who are you organizing, and who do we need to organize to be effective? Because I think that there are elements, and
Ooh. I didn't do anything.
My bad. I was trying to do something in the back. Lawrence, come back.
He gonna think it was me.
Lord, I was trying to take down the words that he had up on the screen, and I pushed the wrong button. My bad.
They said the Amber Show is back. It sure is. That's right.
Lawrence, here we go. Okay. Damn, my bad, Lawrence.
Yeah.
I pushed the wrong button. Yeah.
No. I appreciate it. I appreciate you all working through the technical difficulties. So
yeah, continue.
So in terms of the conversation we were just having about propaganda, the news, and leftist politics and policy, again, like, I think folks have a mixture of personal experience, their media diet, and conversations being held around them. So, like, we know politicians respond to the segment of individuals that are very animated by local news coverage. So when politicians are trying to debate policies that impact tough on crime sentencing, like we tried to deal with youth automatically charged as adults here in Maryland, we have more Black youth charged as adults as a percentage of our population in any state except like Alabama and Mississippi. And what they say is, like, every time I try to talk about this, I get people emailing me or in community meetings saying the kids are out of control. You cannot pass this policy because they're going to perceive it's open season to carjack me. And you need to be tough and send a signal of deterrence to these young people that's not acceptable. So there are people consistently hearing that message. And I think the idea is that, well, those people are just too far gone. And maybe they are. But I think there are a lot of people that are on the fence, where they either are hearing those messages or they're in spaces with people that hear those messages. They feel like that's not the whole story, but they don't feel they can dismiss it. And they need a story that connects what they believe is true, that they know it's sensationalist, they know it's propaganda. But if it is happening, then we need to have a response to it that makes sense, right? And sometimes Sinclair would just lie. Like I had a story where they literally just made a mistake and said that carjackings had tripled when they went from like 3 to 8. And they said there were 3 carjackings a day when there was 1 carjacking every 3 days. So sometimes they literally just lie, and we can point that out. But we got to know enough to point that out. But more than that, I would say...
I still don't think I have to watch the news to do that. I still think that for some of the people that you're talking about who are like taking in the sensationalization, you don't have to radicalize them. Like I feel... personally, I feel like if I can't, reach the person, I just can't reach them. But it's not that serious because I'm still gonna get the win either way. And from the organizing that I've done, like over the last 5-6 years, that's how I've done it, and I've won every campaign I've ever led. So I don't think it's actually necessary, and I think that we should be creating more alternative media and more targeted strategic media to actually get folks to hear messaging the correct way that it should be done. Because a lot of times people be like, I don't know how you were able to get that across, but I was able to get it across because I was very specific in what I said, and I didn't let anybody sway me with the questions they were asking me. So people were able to receive the proper information. And I find when you do that, things work great. But a lot of people don't do that. And a lot of news people don't do that.
So let me clarify. I'm not talking about like hardcore right-wing people. I'm talking about like Black people who may call themselves Democrats, would say Black Lives Matter, support Obama, but be like, these kids is bad, we got to do something with them. And the question is, what do we do with them? Because if we are strategic about presenting them options that center community-based institutions that operationalize connection, culture, and economic opportunity, that can compete and outcompete the criminal justice approach. But we have an anxiety around investing in those institutions on parts of the left because they're so materialist. They're so focused on universal redistribution. Like I saw on Brianna Joy Gray, this big conversation about Medicare expansion decreased arrests by 30%. And it's like, I just don't believe that's true. And I looked at the study, and what they said was that in states that extended Medicaid versus states that didn't, arrests was 30% lower. Arrests did not decline, but they were lower. And they were lower because these were blue states that were decriminalizing things like cannabis and coming down from the tough on crime, broken windows, mass arrest policies of the late 2000s and 2010s. So it wasn't Medicaid expansion. It was just basically a statistical anomaly, but it fits so perfectly within the Brianna Joy Gray, Bernie Sanders vision of the world, which is that the people talking about crime, the real solution is the stuff Bernie was talking about, that they didn't even go into the study to be specific enough to be able to isolate what it was about Medicaid expansion that would decrease arrests, so that I can sell that to community. Because if it's true, tell me what happened and I can sell it. And the closest thing they said was that Medicaid and Medicare expansion got more people into drug rehab, and that decreased crime. And that's not true. Medicaid expansion did lead to more rehab being covered by Medicaid and Medicaid, but more people did not go to rehab. And that's what I mean. We need to have precision and be taking people's concerns about things like crime seriously, to have serious responses to them, like specific grassroots organizations. Because I'm saying we have to be able to like name the people and name the org, name who's going to hold the grant, name how much money the grant's going to be, where it's going to come from, so that people in community that are either hearing propaganda or adjacent to propaganda can say, oh, you want We Are Us to get $5 million over 3 years. It's going to come from a mixture of cannabis taxation revenue and money that the nonprofits like University of Johns Hopkins is going to pay to the city. It's like, oh, if that's what you're saying, if that's what the left is, then I rock with the left. Like, they don't even necessarily, in my opinion, are committed to like the center, the left. They just want results. And we, as the left, should be dominant about delivering material, concrete results to the basis we're seeking to organize and mobilize. I feel like sometimes we're so frustrated that they don't see what we see, that we're not as specific and rigorous about doing the work to deliver for them.
All right. Y'all are bringing it this morning. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We got another host coming through to bring y'all some more of this Remix Morning Show for y'all. So let's do it. Let's take a quick break and come right back right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's go.
Engine number 9 on the New York Transit line. If my train goes off the track, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Back on the scene, crispy and clean. You can try, but don't worry, cause you can't intervene. We be the outcast, down for the settle. Don't play rock, don't play the pebble. Open the door, you best believe we're sliding through it swift. Niftily, we can make it hip-to-be. What with our cause, what with be. Be the epitome, do, die, dippity.
All right. Once again, welcome out. This is the Remix Morning Show. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Go to patreon.com. Become a member over there. Get footage that's rare. And what you can do is donate. Where? You wonder? You ask? You can donate at blkliberationmedia.org. blkliberationmedia.org. We are demonetized, and your support will very much help us to continue what we do for you right here on Black Liberation Media. All right, with that said, let's get back to it. Yeah. And we got Renee in the building.
Damn, not Lawrence left. I was finna talk shit.
Lawrence, he I don't see him on scope. Okay, let's bring it back. Renee, what's good?
What up, man? I got the bat signal.
Hey, you know,
Not the backup. You so funny.
the bat signal. She got the bat signal. I sent out the signal to all hosts and
When
said,
she
"Come
put her
on through."
thing under her name, it says the backup.
Oh, the back.
I did just want to give Lawrence a quick critique before I answer Leah's question. So I actually don't agree on the Brianna Joy Gray Jamal Bowman thing. I do think that it was fucked up that she edited it. Somebody had mentioned in the chat that she's like charging people, so like you can't like watch her stuff for free.
Mhm.
So I do think it's fucked up to like alter what someone says, but I do think that Jamal Bowman is getting way too many concessions, and I agree with a lot of people in the chat. I think that as someone who has done events with Congress members, organized them, talked to them, been around them, they actually have more like knowledge about stuff than they put on, but they try to play that whole like, you know, I just have a lot going on thing. And I really think that he be playing people, because ain't no way you can do all that goddamn yelling and you don't know what's happening. He'd be doing too much. And I feel like he really does the yelling to distract from him not taking hard stances on things, because if you make a big fuss about something, then people think that, oh, you really care about this issue, and they don't get the fact that you don't care about other shit. And I can understand him voting for the Iron Dome thing and not understanding it in real time, but he had done some stuff that was very like pro-Israel before that. And I also think it's okay for him to just acknowledge it. Like, yeah, I felt this way and I changed my mind. I actually prefer when people do that. But I don't think we should give him any concessions of like, yeah, he just didn't know, you know, he didn't mean it. Like, no, he meant all that shit that he did.
Yeah.
From people in the chat, their groups were reaching out to him. So I don't agree that.
No, and he was fully against the BDS movement. Fully, like
And you can't be making these videos yelling, talking about how we got to boycott and we need to protest, but then when people are boycotting and asking you to do the same, then you're against it. So I just think he was playing the political games.
Yeah.
And for somebody in the chat,
that's why he lost his seat in part in the end, is because his stance was not a real one, right? Like he was kind of just floating with whatever he thought was going to get him the most attention in the moment. And because AIPAC turned on him, he had to see if he could utilize the other side of the voting group to try and keep his seat, and it just didn't work. So,
I knew people in Westchester who were working on his campaign, and they was like, "Yeah, this nigga don't lose."
I mean, he got redistricted in a way that made it tough for him. So, you know, I guess, you know, it makes sense that some people say that he just went down swinging because he knew it was going to lose. I want to be very clear. This is not about defending Jamal Bowman per se. This is about an analysis of how the left can build coalitions that can deliver in the future in ways that produce the results that we want. So what I'm saying is that, again, we have a pretty strong multicultural anti-Zionist movement right now that's very explicitly focused on foreign policy, Israel policy, things like that. If we want that movement to grow in ways to be politically durable and deliver results, we need to be able to understand the connections that community that exist in community between the ideology of Zionism, the vision of the only way to have security is through deterrence and violence. Even liberal Zionism, the idea that we can co-opt and control limited concessions and call that revolution. If you have an internal colonial theory of Black politics, you can see the connections between what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in America. And if you make those connections to community, you can begin to build into inroads in the already politically engaged Black community that is being constantly propagandized to be centrist, to be neoliberal, and to be Zionist or liberal Zionist, in ways that the multicultural anti-Zionist movement, like there are organizations that are largely funding and in many ways co-opting the violence prevention work happening in Baltimore that are part of that, Zionist nonprofit industrial complex. And we point out those connections. And we would just like to see other people in that space be as committed to delivering to people on the ground from that perspective as we are, so that we can build this movement. Because when I go to anti-Zionism protests, I was surprised how few working class Black folk I saw there, right? Especially given
I'm
I
never
point
surprised.
out
They be having them protests in the middle of the fucking day.
This one was on the weekend.
We be resting on the weekend. I don't want to go to the protest either.
Yeah.
Shit. They be like,
and again, the protest
at 11 and the shit lasts 4 hours.
Yeah, it's not the end all be all one protest, but what I'm saying is that the ability to show people that this politics is in their self-interest. We get that when it comes to universal redistribution, Medicaid for all, universal basic income. But how when they showed that photo of the people in Gaza at the beach cooling off and the vitriol they received, it reminded me so much of the vitriol and concern people have when Black kids are at the Inner Harbor here in Baltimore or at Fells Point here in Baltimore. How dare you have recreation? How dare you want to cool off? The very idea of being in public space and not being terrified is so anathema to me that I have this visceral response. So I need to not just see more people drawing those connections, but materially saying that we need to have a vision of anti-Zionism and progressive politics that says, okay, we need to deliver for those Black youth that are being criminalized, that are being sent to long prison sentences for merely carrying a gun when they needed to protect themselves and their family in these neighborhoods. We need to see those folks show up so that when you have another version of Jamal Bowman come, he can take an anti-Zionist stance and feel like he has people in the Black community that are going to support him because they see that as in their self-interest. And if we want people like Bowman to not take these bad votes, we need to build grassroots political coalitions that can support people like that.
And I just think if he actually wanted to take an anti-Zionist stance, that he would have answered the calls of his constituents that were calling him from different organizations and asking him not to support certain things. And from what the chat was saying, people who were in those groups, he was actively ignoring them. So I don't think that his stance was real.
Right. And I think at the core, that's my big issue with Jamal Bowman as an example, right? He is the epitome of what the Democratic Party does, right? He gives the spiel, he tells the story, because the left is so the idea of this left coming out of the Democratic Party is it's beyond something that I can comprehend at this point, because they're so centrist and so actually on the right. But if Jamal Bowman is he's the quintessential, right? He gets on stage, he does his talks, he has his lyrical ability to do the thing because he was a principal and all these things. And then
he yelling too damn much.
Right. And then he gets in the seat and he takes the same money that all the rest of them take, right? Which forces him to do the things that are actually antithetical to the ability for Black people to do better in his own districts. Like, his district is one that is so split when you look at the split between who is poor in his district and who is rich in his district that are Black people, right? Like, standing with the Black rich folk who are literally not that much. It's like not a lot of them. Like, this is not helpful to the majority of the community. And my issue with Jamal Bowman is honestly, he's full of shit. Like, he will stand up and he'll say one thing in front of one group, and then he'll quietly go do something else that is completely outside of what people actually need him to do. It's the same bullshit that Cory Booker does, right? Like, Cory Booker will do his 25-hour speech and pretend like, you know, this is some earth-shattering thing he's doing, but he's not stopping shit. And he's still taking the AIPAC money, and he's still going to go and vote on the side of the thing that's going to kill off a population of people on the other side of the world. So I'm not opposed to Lawrence, like, don't take this as me saying like, this is bullshit, we can't do this. I'm not opposed to trying to figure out where you can wheedle in with the powers that exist so you can try and get something for the things that you're working for.
And I want to be clear about what the argument is.
No, go ahead.
The argument is right now that in response to this analysis on the left is including things like expanding Medicaid as the response to criminal arrests. And I'm saying that if we want to prevent people like Jamal from doing what they do, we need to be able to have a more sophisticated pitch. And if the Democrats don't deliver, then we have to be able to turn to the Greens to deliver. Like, that's what we're doing here in Maryland. Like, violence prevention funding, I think, not just funding, but funding in a way that's not tied to the nonprofit industrial complex. So, for example, that's a part of what's giving Baraka support in New Jersey, is him being seen as building an ecosystem of community-based violence prevention orgs.
Which I just find real interesting, because I do not like that.
Tell you?
Well, again, that's not to say that Baraka is perfect. What I'm saying is that
Baraka is buying his support. Baraka is buying his support. He is literally sending people out with money to buy his support and to sign his petitions. So the support that is being stated as like, oh, Baraka has all of this, like, you know, this, people have very little understanding of what's actually going on in Newark. And I live 8 miles from there. So I'm very clear of what's going on in Newark. It ain't got shit to do with Baraka having any interest in actually preventing crime in the city.
And the nigga I went to Vegas with live in Newark, and he said that nigga sucks. So I know for sure that the support that he's showing isn't like what it actually is.
Yeah.
Even though I will say the like movement orgs there, like 1 or 2 of them support him, and I never understood why.
Well, yeah, I can speak from the perspective of someone who has studied the violence prevention ecosystem there and the politics of it. And the main thing I'm trying to get across is that if the perception is that he stood up to elements of the nonprofit industrial complex and fought for Black grassroots orgs to get money and they decreased the violence, then if the left wants to address the people that support him because of that, we need to have a better pitch. And I think that pitch is possible because even in Newark, there's a battle between more institutional forces within the violence prevention space, more people who are tied to that more centrist nonprofit industrial complex, and the grassroots. So if we want to be able to speak to a broad swath of working class Black folks who I believe are persuadable, who don't necessarily have who may have an emotional connection to some politicians because of things like the name Baraka, but generally folks in communities want to see things that deliver. If the choice is between Baraka and his assortment of, you know, potentially patronage, but potentially useful investments in grassroots orgs, and expanding Medicaid and claiming that decreases the rest when it really doesn't, then the community is going to pick the former and not the latter. So the left needs to be more sophisticated in its messaging and analysis around delivering on the ground and drawing connections between these issues to get that support. That's my main argument.
Okay, I actually think I understand, and I'm glad you told us both, like, stop, let me explain myself, because that helps me to understand. Because part of the real issue in a place like Newark is like this idea that he's not supporting it's not true. Like there is so much money in Newark flowing into these nonprofit organizations. Like it is wild, right? Like it's there is a lot of money flowing through Newark, and it's all going to pay people to pretend as if they're doing something beneficial for the people of Newark. Meanwhile, the housing is out of control, the houselessness is out of control, you can't find jobs in Newark. They're selling this idea that you can work for the city of Newark as a teacher and get this, get great pay coming in, but they don't tell people what the actual system in Newark, working in the educational system in Newark, is actually like. There's all these, like, there's this rampant building of unnecessary spaces in Newark. Like there's so much stuff that's happening and none of it actually benefits the people. So if what I'm hearing, and just let me make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, what you're actually saying is not like, no, we should be supporting these people. It's that we need to be very clear and strategic in how we explain to people why what they're understanding about these politicians is actually not conducive to the betterment, the improvement of their material conditions.
Yeah.
Therefore, in building that argument, we might be able to get the actual people behind a true movement towards getting something done.
Yeah, and to get back to, again, some of the genesis of why I wanted to talk about it, the fact that Kshama was replaced by a neoliberal, tough on crime Black Democrat, I think kind of gets to the point I'm trying to make, where violence prevention can easily serve as an appendage of neoliberalism. Like we say consistently, that just getting the murder rate down without any focus on economics kind of opens the city up for gentrification, because that's a big thing that has to slow gentrification, is the fear of public safety. And if you just do violence prevention, it's actually a relatively minor investment in community compared to a more comprehensive housing and community investment more comprehensively. So it fits pretty neatly within neoliberalism, which is why it's starting to get support now. So you can do violence prevention in a way that is completely consistent with neoliberalism, or you can do it part as a larger, more comprehensive social movement and vision of community control and community sovereignty over the engines that govern people's lives. And I'm saying that the left have an anxiety about self-determination in community, where they're more comfortable with universal redistribution policies than being serious about building out the infrastructure it would take to comprehensively not just do violence prevention, but to give community the capacity to invest in its ability to control its communities. And that opens up the space for more centrist neoliberal politicians to claim that they have the solutions for people in the short term.
So could part of the issue really be that the left itself, as like this defining term, does not actually exist in a way that's really conducive to getting the things done that needs to get? Because my problem is, whenever I hear people say the left, I'm always like, who the fuck are you talking about? Like, who are we talking about right now? Because people will just as easily say Jamal Bowman is on the left, who is not on the left, right? As they will say that LBS is on the left. Like, the same people will put both of you together in one room and say you're both on the left, and that is absolutely, like, it's just not. It's not.
I would just say in general, I don't like using political compasses from the French. Like, that's a lot. People are all over the place. So people are all over the place on a bunch of different issues. People don't always have to agree. But again, I think the idea is, if you have, what direction are you going in and who are you accountable to? Because if you're accountable to community, like, I can't just show up, like, I can't, and say Medicaid expansion is going to be the solution to mass arrest. Like, I can't say that. And the idea that not only can the left say that, but like, Breonna, I don't want to pick on Breonna Joy-Gray, but when she heard it, she's like, that word, you saying that, made me feel so good. Like, it did something to her emotionally, because it fits so neatly within her prior conception of the world, that it felt like it's more about people's prior conception of the world than like delivering materially. Because when the propaganda analysis comes in, they're meticulous about deconstructing the statistical methodology of the propaganda, but that's just not nearly as rigorous about dissecting the statistical methodology of that Medicaid decreases arrest study. And I'm saying that we need to, as a left, deal with why we need, some people on the left need things like that to be true. And what is it about, I think, a much more difficult and messy and complicated analysis of weeding through local social justice policy, leading through local development policy in ways that may challenge some of the preconceived notions of people that call themselves on the left. I think that that's just more emotionally difficult and more psychologically and intellectually difficult. And that's the work the left has to do to stop people like Kashama being replaced by Black neoliberal tough on crime Democrats.
And while I want to ask you what is the left, like most of the chat has been asking this entire time, we got to wrap up because I have a very important segment to segue to because the Amber Show must go on. So thank you so much for coming on.
You did not just, girl, if you don't stop.
I was trying to say it with a straight face, Renee. Damn.
So if the question is what is the left, I would say that's a great question because I would think
it
part
is a
of
great question that we're not going to answer right now.
Yeah,
because
we're not going to answer right now. But I'll briefly say it's very weak. It may be as weak as it's ever been. It largely exists in spaces that are disconnected from spaces that wield material political power, especially locally. And given that, I think that if you are a person who sees themselves as anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, whatever your political strategy is, I'm not saying vote for Democrats. You know, I've canvassed for Greens. We're going to talk about engaging the Greens here in Maryland. What I'm saying is that you have to link whatever your strategy is to materially delivering for working class people, and not in a theoretical way. Because again, I just think that Medicaid decreased arrest study was just so perfect. Because those are the types of things that people sometimes run on to try to win these sort of city council races, and they end up losing. Not because people are ideologically anti-leftist, because there's not a narrative about how something like that connects to their lived experience in their lives. And so we need to be able to say, like, if you want these orgs to get money and not have to go work for Hopkins and not have to work for, you know, the nonprofit industrial complex, we as the left are going to critique the nonprofit industrial complex, not to just in the abstract destroy it, but to specifically take the strings off the grant money to allow these orgs to have more freedom to do more comprehensive work on things like violence prevention, but also housing affordability orgs. They have the same limitations. You know, housing co-ops may have some similar limitations. So we need to be able to engage comprehensively locally to deal with that.
I think we should ignore all of that and ask, how did Black people organize before there was a left, like the person in the chat asked? But I think we should actually save this conversation for you and Ricky Ryan to discuss, because I feel like they have more context. I actually don't care about the left-right stuff as much as other people do, so I don't actually think about it that much, and I have no real argument other than I don't really believe in them. So, Ear Doctor, go ahead.
So, yes, it's a duopoly, as I've learned. So, Lawrence, thank you for coming through. We're going to take a break real quick, and then we're going to come back with some more right here on No Other Than a Remix Morning Show. Let's go. Remix on the remix.
Passing in the streets, words unspoken, silence unbroken, just by chance, we fell into romance, cry of success, no room to guess.
All right, welcome out. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Go to patreon.com, become a member over there, get footage that's rare, and donate. Where? At blkliberationmedia.org. Donate. We are demonetized, and with your support, we can continue to keep this thing going, as you know. All right, with that said, let's get back to our Remix Morning crew right here on Black Liberation Media. Let's go.
Wanting to get stronger, you better not let go.
All right, ladies.
Hi, guys.
What's good? What's good?
I love that song, Ear Doctor, by the way. Renee, are you not going to turn your video on?
Nah,
are you at work?
No.
Nah,
No.
you don't know Renee. Renee
Amber knows me. The problem is Amber knows me. Amber's been in my
Me and Renee went and
car.
got pizza.
Me
And
and
Renee,
Amber
I'll be in
hosted.
New York for like a whole 7-8 days this summer. So you
Ooh, pizza. That's
Hell
right.
yeah.
Look. I took Amber on the train.
It was so much fun.
We did so much.
I can imagine that. I could
Hold
imagine
on,
that.
Rad, who is Angela?
Did I call you? You know why? Because I'm
Somebody,
looking in the chat. My bad, Amber. My
somebody in the
bad.
chat said Renee and
Wow.
Angela is dope, and I said, "Who was
Oh,
Angela?"
I
Not
was
you.
like,
You call me Amber.
I was like, did I call you Angela? I didn't think I called
No,
you
someone in the
that.
chat did.
I
I said,
see.
"Who the
I
hell is
see.
Angela?"
Oh,
Well, I'm glad we
that's
can have this.
interesting because Rad doesn't usually like me, so I'm
I'm
surprised
screaming.
to see that.
There's a lot of people that don't like me, so join the train, Renee. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm glad we can actually come on here and have discussions and have disagreements and still be able to, hit these topics how we do. So, with that said, Amber, what would you trying to put us
Can
on?
you pull up that Can you pull up that Instagram link I dropped? Because
Yes, I
I
can. All
can't
right.
present.
Bam. Here we go. There you go.
Okay, so for people who watched the last few weeks, I've been talking about the XAI project happening here in Memphis and how the community has been pushing back against it. So 2 weeks ago, there was a picture that the Southern Environmental Law Center put out that showed 35 gas turbines on the property. And our mayor came out and said, well, according to XAI, they're only using 15 of the 35. Like, that's what they told me. And so yesterday, Justin Pearson posted this thermal heat picture that shows actually they're using 33 of the 35, not 15 of the 35, because they're fucking liars. And I just wanted to talk about it because we're actually doing a week of action right now, partnering with my job, Memphis Communities Against Pollution, and Young Gifted and Green about the permit hearing that's happening today at 5 p.m. So on Tuesday, we did a public comment training with community members in the South Memphis area, showing them how to write their public comments, like where they need to go, providing them computers to do that because most of it's electronics. You have to be on your phone or computer. And then yesterday, we hosted a artist like Cypher type of event where people could come in from the artist and music community. And I did a teaching about public comments and also helped to explain what exactly XAI was for people. So for folks who haven't been watching and don't know, XAI is a data center that's being built here in Southwest Memphis. And the community is staunchly against it and has been against it this entire time and really been pushing back against it. And so there's a lot of momentum that's been built up. And because of that, I think that that's making it even harder for XAI to like push any kind of propaganda. There was so much happening that actually someone from a anonymous company sent out mailers to everybody in the Southwest community, Southwest Memphis community, talking about how this was a good project and how it's not using anything toxic because the turbines that they're using on the property aren't using diesel or coal, which is insane because they're methane gas turbines. But I just want to show this because this just came out like late last night. But the fact that they're using 33 of the 35, I think even looks even worse because I already felt like they were lying because it's Elon Musk. But I told one of my friends, I was like, this is just it's not going good for them. Like the mayor standing beside them isn't looking good. They really need to wrap it on up. I was like, it's not too late to switch sides.
What did you said they sent out? So what did they send? Can you like who sent out what and what did it say? Because now I'm like, what what's going on?
Justin actually posted the mailers. I'm gonna share his post real quick.
All right, this is what you call dead air, and since we have that right now, I just like to make sure y'all hit that like button and subscribe.
I mean, they really didn't have any dead air because I was like doing a little beat on the mic, but
no problem. I got your back. That's what teamwork is about, Amber. So, with that said, Renee, glad you could make it, and make sure y'all check out Renee on Saturdays. On Saturday,
we're gonna start late tomorrow because
why is that?
Because Jared is gonna be on a plane, and we were initially gonna pre-record for tomorrow and then just run the show like we do when we have to pre-record. But apparently wherever Jared is staying does not have good internet, and he's on the struggle right now. And so we're going to start tomorrow at noon and just do the live show starting at noon instead of pre-recording. And we're going to have to reschedule Todd and Ntume. They're going to come on the 17th instead. So
one person you don't want to get mad is Jared, boy. Woo, that dude turned red. Call him Red Man.
Y'all stay saying that.
I call him Red Man. As soon as something that technology don't go right, turn into the Red Hawk out this bitch. You got it together, Amber?
Yeah, I got the link. I'm dropping it in the chat for you.
All right, cool.
Not you got the timing together. I know that's right.
All right, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up. And we can check it out. Breathe easy, as it says. Breathe easy. All right, boom. So here we go. Let's get it.
So these are the postcards that somebody sent out. On the first side, it says, "Breathe easy, Memphis." Those 15 XAI turbines, they're specially designed to protect the air we all breathe with air quality levels similar to those from a neighborhood gas station, which is also not true. And then flip to the next page.
Oh, what's the next page?
That little arrow right there. Yeah.
Yep. Got you.
So hold on, let me turn my camera off so I can read it because I got to get close to the screen. I don't think it's gonna let you do that.
Go ahead and read.
I'm trying. Some of us.
All right, minor, not major. Let's clear the air. The fact about those turbines as AI's Memphis site. Cleaner tech. The turbines are natural gas fired turbines, no diesel or coal.
They are not. So natural gas is methane gas. And I think it's really important for people to understand that part, because when they're saying they are natural gas, they're talking about the methane. So it's a methane gas turbine. And within the turbines, they put out formaldehyde. I'm going to read it specifically from their application. So CTC Properties is the one who is applying for the air permits. This technology will put out 72.95 tons of particulate matter, 29.58 tons of sulfur dioxide, 93.96 tons of carbon monoxide, 87.14 tons of nitrogen oxide, 84.82 tons of volatile organic compounds, and 13.71 tons of hazardous air pollutants. And some of that is formaldehyde. So they're saying these are natural gas turbines, but that methane gas they're putting out is harmful for the environment. And yes, it occurs naturally, but it's not good for the community when you're putting it out in these large, huge quantities. They have 15 methane gas turbines that they were supposed to be operating, but apparently they're operating 33 of the 35. They really trying to stick to that 15 number, Enoch. I mean, they really are. But I don't know who put this out for them, because it's not XAI, because I actually did some Googling. It wasn't XAI who put it out. It's some anonymous like org. But even the stuff about the air emissions, it says each turbine has 3 layers of emissions controls, including cutting edge systems that reduce air pollution to near zero. That's not true, because if it was true, then they wouldn't be putting that much pollution into the air. And the 15 gas turbines they applied for made them a minor pollutant. Having 35 makes them a major pollutant, and they actually become the largest polluter in the city of Memphis. So more than the other 17 toxic waste facilities that are in that same area. And the reason why we're pushing back against it so hard is because there are 17 toxic waste facilities in that one neighborhood, and they've been fighting to get some of them closed down. They actually got one to close. So there were 18, now 17. And they've been doing that, organizing. Memphis Communities Against Pollution has been doing that for like 2 years. It's been 2 years to get that one facility closed. And so, I mean, we're fighting against the XAI thing just because it's horrible for the environment, and we don't fuck with Elon Musk. And I think that they thought that they were going to be able to slide this through. Like, our Chamber of Commerce is the ones who've been leading it. They thought they were going to slide this junk through, and people were going to be like, oh, it's fine. No, we've been on their ass. And now they get nervous, so they sending out anonymous mailers. But the public hearing for the air permits is today. And the Southern Environmental Law Center actually flew over the property on March 31st that showed the 35 gas turbines and not just the 15. And in that letter that they wrote to like the health department and the mayor, they said that y'all need to start fining them $25,000 a day because they're lying to you. And they haven't, our health department hasn't done anything like repercussion wise, because they're saying that they get 365 days legally from the EPA and the Clean Air Act before they can face any repercussions. And that 365 days doesn't end until the 30th of April. And I just said, that's some bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so they have 365 days to poison everybody before? That's wild.
And so the way that the Clean Air Act is written, like the federal legislation, allows for businesses to use that because it takes a long time for them to do like the environmental impact studies and all that stuff. It takes so much time that businesses will say, well, we can't operate our business because we don't have, this power source or whatever. And so they have 365 days to operate until they can have to have a permanent permit. And then if they don't get the permit approved, then they can't use whatever source they were using.
So and you'll have this is not something that I have any real understanding of, these turbines and things like that. So the turbine, the 35 turbines that are there, right? Did someone come in and buy a facility that already had those turbines, or did they build those turbines there?
They built them. So, well, they didn't not build, they bought them. So they bought the turbines from somewhere to put them on the property. So the property they bought used to be this factory called Electrolux, and Electrolux left like kind of like a year or two after they even got the property. They left, and so it had been vacant this whole entire time, but it was owned by Electrolux. It wasn't owned by the city. And so the Chamber of Commerce specifically helped XAI to purchase the building. And I think that they purposely helped them buy something that was private so that they didn't have to go through a public process.
Right.
If they had to go through the public process, they actually would have never gotten the plant. Like, we all know that wouldn't have happened. And the Chamber of Commerce has basically been guiding them through this process the entire time, helping them to buy properties they need. They said that they formed, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Ted Townsend, said they formed a 24-hour rapid response team to respond to any needs that XAI has.
Wow.
At any time, to make sure that they have all the support they need so they can pollute our communities.
And did no one question, like, if they were only going to run 15 turbines, why they needed to put 35 there? Because it seems to me like if you only need 15, why are we putting 35 in place?
I think that people didn't know. So because I'm gonna re-explain the whole way that this happened.
Yeah, and I apologize to the chat because sometimes I can't watch Fridays, and so I.
Are you good? I actually explained.
I see some of you. Yeah, you because you did a thing from across the street, and you know. Yeah, so I watched that, but I don't understand. I don't understand a lot of this. Like, I know it's all bad for the environment, but I'm trying to understand the baseline of, like, how does this happen where a company is allowed to bring in something that is beyond what they say they're going to use? Because if they do that, then you automatically know they're not going to use what they're telling you they're using. Because if you only need 15, you may bring in 20. So if one goes down, you have like a backup. But if you need 15 and you bring in 35, that's because you know you're using 30. Like, it's not. So I'm trying to understand the whole, like, back end of this. That to me is like, who fell for this and who paid them to fall for it?
I don't think anybody got paid, for one, because I mean, they don't care that much. But I will say that they didn't know that they had that many gas turbines on there because no one had been to the property. That was the whole reason why I did that video in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
When they announced it, the Chamber of Commerce put out a press release saying that this XAI project is coming here. No one in the city knew about it. The only people who knew about it were the XAI people, the Chamber of Commerce, MLGW, who's a power source here, but they signed an NDA, and then the mayor's office met with them afterwards. So, like, no one knew other than the people who were supposed to give them power for the building, but they signed an NDA, so they didn't say nothing. So then they bring the building there, they build everything they need, put the supercomputer in there, and they have the gas turbines on the property. they're saying they're operating 15, but no one goes down there to see. The news isn't reporting on this. They're showing pictures that the Chamber of Commerce gave them. The local newspapers, like no one physically has gone down to actually see it, which is why I went down there, because, you know, I got to be an investigative journalist because motherfuckers don't want to put out the information. So I had to go down there physically myself and show people what the turbines look like. But methane gas turbines are like rented from a company. They didn't build them. They're like, they rented them from somewhere or bought them from somewhere. And even in the video I took, I was like, this looks like more than 15 to me.
Right.
Like it looked like more than
So
that.
are they, so since they're not built there and they're rented, then there is a plausible fight to say, like, just pull these things, just take them out, right? Like,
yeah, so that's what the permit hearing is for. So their permit
Okay.
hearing is today. And after the Environmental Law Center flew over the property and they saw that there were more than 15 on there, they were like, well, you need to invalidate their application because they applied for 15 permanent methane gas turbines and they have 35. And then XAI told the news and the mayor and other folks that they only had 15 operating. They just had 35 as backups. And I was like, y'all are full of shit. They definitely don't care though, John. But I think that they're realizing that we're not just gonna let them do whatever they want, because the amount of like national attention this is getting is on their ass. Like they very much are like, oh, we're gonna have to actually like fight. And they are, because we're finna pack out that public hearing today. And if they don't deny the permit, then we're moving on to the next step. Like we're not gonna give up on like getting them out of the city. And they aren't, like, no one wants them here. I think that's the biggest issue, is that they're most likely going to lose because no one wants them here other than the mayor's administration, because they got a lot of money in taxes and they want tax money. That's it.
Right. So only because I'm going to entertain this just for a second. Can you talk about the governmental structure of the people who are behind these decisions? Like, is the Memphis City Council, and are these like, are they part of a DR type setup, or are they all nonpartisan? Like, I just so I'm.
What's DR? Oh, you mean like
Democrat, Republican? Yeah,
they're all nonpartisan.
They're all nonpartisan.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, I honestly think that the city council kind of got a cop out here because they didn't really have to make a stance because they were private sales. And so because the city didn't own any of the land, they didn't actually get a vote on them, which is why we pushed for them to pause the permitting process. So about a month ago, we had a resolution through the Shelby County Commission, who the health department is governed under, and asked them to pause the permitting process to hold a public hearing because the community members haven't had a chance to even comment on the pollution because they bought these like these private sales. They bought the building from someone, not from the actual city.
Mm-hmm.
And they voted to approve that. So they paused that process. Now we have the permit hearing tomorrow. And they also been taking public comments in online. And so not tomorrow, it's today. They had the permit hearing today at 5 p.m. And we have shit popping until then. We got a press conference at like 4:30. NBC Universal was down here. Politico was down here. Like they're finna get lots of press action, and I don't think that it's gonna go well for them. So if they don't approve the permits, then great, we're good. If they do, then it's gonna even look way worse. And so Rad mentioned that we have a strong mayor. Yeah, we have a strong mayor weak council set up. So our mayor is the one who like approves contracts. He can sign on to like different deals and all that stuff. And then the council does anything dealing with money and passes like ordinances and stuff. Because that's what we passed the ordinances with around Tyree Nichols, like the pretextual stop ordinances. They went through the city council.
Okay. Thank you for that. So someone's asking, can we as non-community members at least express our disapproval to the city council of this for Memphis community members? Like, is there some way for people who are not in Memphis to provide or present any kind of?
I would actually say the best way that y'all could support us is to fill out a public comment. And I'll put the bit.ly link in the chat. And when it asks you for your address, you can put 38109, which is the South Memphis zip code. And you put in a public comment about how dangerous this is and that we don't want it. I heard that we've gotten like close to thousands of comments so far.
Okay.
Good work, Amber. Good work.
Failed.
Yeah, good work. And also Chichimancha 1025 said they love to do the word natural gas to confuse people like it's not bad for them. And yeah, that word natural, you can even read it on the back of your food. It says natural flavors. That word natural gets
Right. It
used.
means a lot of things. And
Yeah.
a lot of it don't have nothing to do with natural.
Not at all. Not at all. Another natural thing that's going on, why as I'm on my news shit a little bit today. Y'all hear anything about the deadly E. coli outbreak in 15 states, but the FDA chose not to publicize it? Yeah. So when we talk about revolution and we talk about what we need to do, we also got to talk about our food resources that's we can actually have a little bit of control over. So, because the media is not going to put it out, and they're going to be like, okay, well, we controlled it. So, real
Right.
quick,
Oh,
that's
no, go
another
ahead.
thing. No, I was saying that's another thing we got to do. We got to start working on growing our own food and stuff like that.
What food
Because
you growing right now, your doctor?
lettuce, tomatoes, and onions.
How's it going? Are you doing an inside garden?
Outside garden and some buckets. It's just so I
Mm.
can move it to get it in the sun and stuff like that.
So when you gonna get some chickens? Because the eggs is high.
Well, I use mung beans and make eggs. So mung beans is a
Your
stuff
doctor's a
substitute that gives you
vegan.
protein.
You lost me there.
Yeah, I know. I don't eat.
Can
I
you
don't eat
post? I
chickens.
posted the Bitly link in our private chat. Can you post it on the stream?
Will do.
For folks
And
to
I
make
also I want people to be clear, like, yes, this most recent thing not being posted, but the government regularly did not notify people when shit was happening. Like this
Yeah.
is not a
It's
new
not like a
thing,
new
right?
Nah,
Like,
not at all.
I will say that the
like
E. coli
regularly.
The E. coli breakouts actually have been publicized a few times. And as someone mentioned, you said that the media wasn't putting it out, but the media is literally what you were reading.
Mhm.
And I thought that was funny. But I will say that I have actually seen them talking about E. coli breakouts because there was a bird flu breakout in Tennessee. And they were talking about it on the news and stuff too. I think that only certain places are reporting it. Like the
Mhm.
FDA isn't doing like a big press release or something, but if you go to the CDC website, they put out stuff all the time, like letting people know, because there was supposed to be a measles case here, and then it turned out to be a false positive, and they updated people later on. But the news posted about it, and they updated the story.
And there's also information that just simply does not make the cycle. So there was an explosion in California that impacted all of the food plants that were close to where the explosion happened, and that is just as impactful as anything else. And because the news cycle has no interest in giving people real information, and so these things for me, like, there's a lot, and it's intentionally a lot. And I say this all the time, like the goal is to keep everybody spinning in circles and on their hamster wheel because they have to pay their bills and unable to actually read things and pay attention. And like, it just never ends. And so people at some point just have to really say, like, I'm going to stop just doing whatever it is that I'm being fed and told to do, and take a moment to research something, to read something, to learn something, to figure something out, so that you're not just being complicit in the nonsense that's being sold to you by the general media, general government. Like it's all to keep you on your hamster wheel.
Yeah, and I hope this conference that's coming up touches a little bit on food, because that's another very.
Leah said, "Did you watch the
No, I
Callie
didn't.
Kuno's Build and Fight segment on Food
No, I
Solidarity?"
did.
Oh.
Sure did, and I don't watch a lot of shows I'm creating.
It was on this channel.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying when you create
Air Doctor not watching those shows on the channel.
I gotta create.
Are you ready for our live remix morning show at the conference?
Who's doing that?
Oh.
Only live show I'm doing is with Kim Brown for Classical Breakdown.
Now and I discussed it and said that he was going to tell you about it.
Wow. I always get told last.
There go Camus.
You know what I'm saying? The one
that
whatever in Camus' defense, he can't resist my charms. And I was like, don't you want to do this? And he said, oh. I said,
yeah.
So Renee, you'll be on too.
I'm not. I wasn't invited to the conference, so I'm not gonna be down there.
Everybody was invited.
No, No,
She
you
means
got
she
listen.
didn't get a ticket. Like she didn't
You
get
like
purchase a
folks
ticket.
got like a phone call, a text message, a can
I didn't get
you
a phone call or a text
come,
message. They don't give a fuck
blah
about
blah
me.
blah. So
Oh,
you know,
well,
Ear
you
doctor
know.
didn't even call me.
I
Ear
mean,
doctor asked me for my phone number and still has never used it.
yeah.
don't
Like,
feel
I don't
bad
have.
because Air Doctor has had my number for like 2 years, and every time yeah, you really have. We've been on a text chat, like you really have. But it's all good. You didn't save me. It's no problem. It's not a big deal. It's all good. I don't take it personal.
But I always reach out.
You do. You
There
do.
you go. There you go.
Do.
Thank
It's
you.
all good.
Did
It's all
Kamal
good.
speak to you yesterday? I told him to. He didn't. I'm pretty sure he didn't. All right, Renee. You know. All right. So
Well, anyways, we
yeah.
gotta discuss our live show. I'll set up a meeting so we can discuss it.
Oh, okay. I like how y'all just all right.
I'm so excited. Aren't you, Ear Doctor? You get to see me unhinged in
I
person.
mean, anytime I see you, you're unhinged. I mean, last time I seen you at the conference, it was like, Ear Doctor, play this song. Play this song. I was like, God damn. Hi, how you doing?
Listen, in my defense, I had asked Kamal something. He said, "Oh yeah, just tell the Ear Doctor." So that's what I did.
Yeah. Sometimes it's pretty cool because I got to do a prom tomorrow with a bunch of kids sticking
Not
their
a
phone in my
prom.
face. Yeah.
Look, Ricky is
Make sure
calling
you
me
play that,
out. Look at this. All right,
What?
she's not lying though. Like I have a rough time leaving, but it's because
do.
I am the sole provider of transportation for the 14-year-old.
Oh.
So he could not get to and from
drive?
school. What 14-year-old is
14.
driving himself to
I
school?
said your husband can't
My
drive.
husband has a job that does not allow him to leave the house to drive the 14-year-old.
Put the baby on a bus.
I know
Order
that's
her-
There
right.
is no bus.
Oh, they live in the suburbs.
Yeah, we live in the suburbs. There's
Order
no
the
there's
baby
no
a
train
Uber.
line. There's no nothing. So
Order
it'd
the
be
baby
rough.
a Uber. I'll send you $50 right now.
Mm.
You can even schedule it. When you schedule it, it's cheaper.
Oh Lord, it'd be rough. It'd be rough.
have
I
no
do
Sounds
every
insane.
now and
Absolutely.
again. If I can make it work, I will go somewhere and do something. But it's rough out.
I
in
have
these
no room
parts,
for
man.
excuses. Only solutions, Renee. We're only solution oriented.
Sounds
We are, which is why I do stuff local. That's why I'm
sounds
always
insane.
running an event, always doing some stuff.
I see
I
what
do
you tried to
stuff
do there.
local.
It's not
Sounds
the
the
same.
same. Elsewhere just said it. I can't watch things to inform myself on important issues. I only have time to create. Ear Doctor. Well, you know, Sounds of Saint Elsewhere, when you're putting into action and not just talking, you don't really have time to talk. You have time to do. Continue.
The chat said that we should have a Kim and Amber hour, and I agree, Ear Doctor. Let's set that up.
All right.
It's always a hater. It's okay. I can't wait to see
I'm considering it.
Live Amber show as well for everyone in the chat who's excited. And my hair won't look like this because I fucking
It
hate
look
these
good.
people.
Your hair
Right,
look good.
I like your hair.
I like the
What's wrong with your
2-strand
hair?
twist.
You know, this is what happened. So I said, you know, I got some contract gigs. I'm going to use some of the money I make from that to invest in convenience services because I don't like doing things. And I went to the beauty shop and I realized that I actually don't like when other people do my hair because it doesn't look like how I do it. And when I had booked this, I'm thinking, oh, she's going to do 2-strand twists like the ones that I wear. And I'm pretty sure this is like 25 twists compared to like the 103 that I do. And so I think because they're not small, like I normally do them, I don't like them. That's all.
I like them.
That's why I've been going to the same loctician
move.
for like 14 years.
Yeah, I've been going to
because
the.
you got locks and it's different. I can't handle the weight of locks. I just.
Yeah, them locks ain't no joke. I had to get rid of
They
them a while
heavy.
back.
Y'all ain't seen
Yeah.
Renee locks. Them motherfuckers is long. I know your neck hurt.
Yeah, mine went down to my butt, and that whole Sunday of cleaning and retwisting, it was a lot. I couldn't do that no more. And plus, my hairline was starting to look like Lawrence. I had to relax.
I'm done.
Y'all was on
muting.
Lauren's ass. I said,
I mean,
leave?
I mean, I know when to call it quits over here. I'm just saying.
I
Big up
think
to
people
Lawrence for
should know
coming
when to
through.
call it quits for sure.
Yeah, you know, not everybody. Stevie still, he's holding on like he's holding on to the hair. But
Ear doctor is definitely. I mean, not ear doctor. Stevie is definitely holding on. Someone said ear doctor in the chat, and it made me think about you. But
Oh yeah. In fact,
look
for
out
the
for that.
conference, we're gonna have to put a line up of people that got beef with me, so I could just handle them one by one. I just want them to stand in the line and say what they gotta say, so I could just yeah.
What you gonna
And you
do?
can just what?
'Cause you can't fight.
Like I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
go ahead,
Okay.
tell
I
me what
want
you
to
gonna
know
do.
what the response is gonna be.
Oh no, I just want to chat back at them. You know how they do in the chat room. No violence. We here for organizing, but I need to organize them in a line and tell them, in their face. Now they can say it in my face, and I can say it right back.
Thanks for the compliment, Ricky. I actually do love the cut. When I got it cut, I actually really like that. I think it doesn't look like how when I did it. And Leah, I did not show her a picture. In my head, when you book something, it's just gonna come out how you want it to. Now I know that's not realistic, but that's not what matters here. What matters is that when I booked it, I said, "Oh yeah, I'm finna get twists like I normally wear," and that was not it. And she said she don't work with extensions. I say, girl, you don't look kinky hair people. Ooh, she particular, but I like her. She knows what she's doing. She be scrubbing the hell out of my scalp. It feels so good. I be falling asleep. But I don't know how I feel about the styles. That's the only thing. And that's why I do my hair myself, because I like to change it so much. And I realized that when you pay for someone to do your hair, it's like $100. And do I want to spend $100 every other week? No.
That's why I shave my head. We got any more stories before we get up out of here? We got about 12 more minutes.
I mean, I was still talking about the story when you interrupted me, but
I asked, listen, you can get in that line too, Amber. You can get right in that line when I see you. It said Ricky first. I got Goddess Crew next. I got Elon. I got A-Rob. Yeah, we're going to have a nice
I don't
long
think
line.
it's necessary because, your doctor, you already short, so you already fighting hard enough.
Wait a minute. What do you mean
He's
short?
not short.
I'm 5'10".
Are you? You're short?
I'm 5'10".
I'm taller than you.
What does that mean? So when it comes to somebody so I'm short to you. All right, got you. Fuck out of here.
I don't know why. I don't know why I thought you were taller than that, Air Doctor. I didn't know. I didn't know that.
No.
He's not.
I'm powerfully packed.
I put a link in the chat, Ear Doctor, from the Instagram video I did, so you can see what the turbines look like. You don't have to play the whole video; just play it up until the part where I show the turbine.
Oh, so we going back to the turbine thing? We not moving forward?
I was still talking about it when you interrupted me with your E. coli story.
Okay, got you. Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, so will this video be you?
It's definitely me.
Oh, that's right. It's the Amber Show. I forgot. Let me go ahead and pull that up.
No need to be a hater. I'm popular.
Let's see. Oh, nope, no sound. Let's bring it back.
And everyone's been talking about it, so I figured why not just come down here? So I'm here at the XAI site to give folks an up close and personal look at what XAI is doing here in Memphis. So the building is holding Colossus, which is a supercomputer that runs Grok, their central AI tool, similar to like your ChatGPTs, but it's the XAI version of that. And all of this occurred without any community input. Actually, Ted Townsend, who's the president of the Memphis Chamber of Commerce, worked with XAI to bring this project here and kept the public completely in the dark. Even the MLGW staff members had to sign NDAs before being briefed on the project. Yeah, crazy. So this one supercomputer actually uses 1 million gallons of water per day. And that's currently being pulled from our local aquifer. And it uses 150 megawatts of electricity. Not only that, but they've been operating this facility since last year without proper permits. Yeah. The health department has not issued any air permits for the 18 methane gas turbines at this facility, which are visibly emitting a steady stream haze of smoke into the air. So you can actually see those are the methane gas turbines right over there. And all of that nasty pollutant they're putting into the air is where the air looks really hazy. So not only are they operating illegally, but they're also polluting our air. South Memphis, which is where your doctor.
Okay. Great on the ground report in there, Amber.
Thank you. In a past life, I was Ida B. Wells' little cousin. And for a manifesto in the chat who asked, am I statuesque? Yes, I'm tall and thick. Great figure. So I definitely tower over ear doctor.
You did
Huh?
not say tower over.
Leah, your doctors, your ancestors were from shaded areas. I don't get it.
Because you light skinned, nigga. Dang.
Let's just stay out the chat because everybody's not a
You should-
comedian.
I wasn't expecting it. I thought you would be taller than me, but you're not. I'm
Somebody
taller than
said,
you.
not you
So
got
that
beef
was-
with
that-
all the women.
That's surprising.
Of course. And who would it? Who else would it be? Another one? What? A-Rob? Let me guess. Was that who?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Also
Anyway.
taller than Geechee, which I wasn't expecting.
Oh,
to be.
Geechee's short.
I don't know. In
Geechee
my
is
head, he
short.
wasn't short either.
He's
So-
short and athletically built. Like I know he can fight.
But he was a DB in college, right? That's it, right? Or
Yeah,
was he, he was a DB, right? So he's got a DB build. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I was a running back in high school.
For Ashley
Were
Knuckles
you?
in the chat, who
Yeah,
asked
yeah.
me, you played football?
Yeah, all the way to senior year.
For Ashley Knuckles in the chat who asked me what microphone I use, this is the one I use when I'm doing content outside. This is how it looks. So I will go on, but my friend got it from me on Amazon. I didn't buy this. They got it from me for Christmas. They were like, here, let's get you some mics. So it comes with two, and this is what they look like. So I would just get the ones that look like that, and they work perfect.
I hope you're getting paid for that little spot you did for him.
I'm not getting paid. I don't even know the name of them. So how
Oh.
can I get paid for it?
There it is. I like it. No
I don't
brand.
even know the name of the company.
Word. So we got about 5-6 more minutes left. Ladies, what would y'all like
I
to
don't
do?
I don't have access to the run sheet that Erica
Okay.
builds, but don't send it to me. Just
Nah.
We don't even have time for a run sheet. But I
Yeah,
love
but
the
there might
people
be
that
something
are
on
championing
there.
it.
We might, you
Yeah,
know, there's
you know.
did Kamal talk about what happened in Michigan? Has he been on since they kicked indoors in Michigan? No?
Yeah, we talked about that, I believe, yesterday.
I don't think Kamal did though.
Really? You don't think so? I think he
Was it
did. Was
Kamal
y'all
on
was y'all watching?
No, I couldn't watch yesterday.
Oh, okay. I was there, but
Yeah, because you watch the shows you work on.
you're right. I had no choice. When you produce a show, you got to watch it.
Because I'm curious about like what's happening with all of that. Did y'all see that Cornell canceled a performance because they said the artist was too pro-Palestine, and so they canceled the whole show?
Really?
Classic. Oh yeah. And
Mm.
then so you have all of that madness going on because all of these schools that are, you know, driving themselves crazy trying to prove that, you know, they're actually not anti-Semitic when all their behavior shows that what they are is, you know, pro-Zionist, and it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. But I was just curious because I tried to check on Kamala.
It might have been Kalani. It might have been.
It was Kalani.
I
It was
love
Kalani.
Yeah.
It was.
You know,
She was
something about-
scheduled to
something
perform
about-
at Cornell, and the president canceled it because he said
Something
he
about
got too many
Baylani and her
complaints.
toxic ass that really does it for me. But I'm not gonna hold you. She toxic as hell. And she like in a custody battle with her baby daddy, who I don't even know. Yeah, that's a lot. Someone also said that I saw this tweet that was talked about how Victoria Monet having a baby with that man and Kaylani having a baby with the guy that she had a baby with opened up a portal that fucked up the whole lesbian relationship thing that they should have been in. And now that they're both single again, they should get together. And I actually agree because I feel like they opened up a portal of toxicity because they didn't go the right direction in love. And now that they're both single and they get together, then maybe we can fix the universe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Big up to all the artists that do stand up and say something. I know Chance the Rapper also speaks against it.
I love Chance the Rapper. Shout out to Dante in the chat for chanting. You know, I love a fan. It does something for me. Just want you to know. And my cheekbones are glowing because you know what? I use sunscreen, you guys. And I highly suggest as the summer is picking up that you also use some sunscreen. I use Black Girl sunscreen. They have not endorsed me though, so I can't tell you where to get it from or nothing. But you can Google it.
I never use sunscreen.
And then you're gonna get sunburn and be mad. You'll be mad. if
I've
your
never
light
got
skin has
sunburn.
skin cancer.
I
But
like
you know,
that
light
vitamin.
people are more prone to skin cancer. So you playing.
Nah, I'm cancer free. I ain't catching none of that stuff. Y'all know me, Mr. Anti Western everything.
Here we go.
I mean, you Western against anti-Western politics. Why
It's
not
not about
be
it's not even about
anti
sunburn.
every
like-
other thing?
it's like the poison the sun can do to your body from long-term exposure.
No, I
So
get you. Some people do need it.
You get them little scar things on your head and be like, "What's that?" And they be like, "It's melanoma." I
Mm-hmm.
look at you.
Yeah, but anyway, so
What's happening this weekend?
yeah.
Well, I got to go to this conference at Essex County College that I don't really want to go to, but I got to go because
In New York?
No, in Newark. So I got to do that in the morning, and then now we're doing the show. I thought I was clear for the day, but now we're going to do the show tomorrow. We're going to start at noon instead of 11. So I have that going, and then I actually have plans to go see some of my high school friends on Sunday. So hopefully that works out.
Nice.
So
Kaylani is gay. From Musings in Bloom, who's asking, Kaylani is gay. Victoria Monet is bisexual. And Kaylani's baby daddy is bisexual. They had some kind of like agreement. So I think maybe they just both wanted a child. And lavender marriage is a thing. So, it's whatever. This weekend, well, today I'm going to the public hearing stuff. And then I'm going to see Sinners with my little giant. Also, Renee, my other little giant in Newark, the one I like the most, he went to Rutgers. And I was like, how did you go to Rutgers and have no student loans? Is it really cheap?
Well, yeah, if you live in New Jersey and you go to Rutgers, especially if you went to Rutgers Newark, you're not paying for housing. And if you get any, there's all kinds of programs to make Rutgers not expensive. But it is not, as a state school, it is not expensive at all. So he could definitely, there's plenty of opportunity to go for free.
The more you know. Right. This weekend, I'm going to a conference that I helped organize with some Black women here. It's this group called Women in Leadership Leaning on Wisdom. And it's like, not just Black people, but it's like women who are like in leadership positions or who are like just working, professionals or whatever. It doesn't matter what job you're in, really. It's like people from all over. But we just meet up and do a conference retreat thing every year to like relax, reset, talk about like key priorities we want to work on as an org. And I'm on the planning committee this year because the last few times I went, it was lame. And I have this thing where like when something sucks, I feel like I should just take it over. And so that's what I did. And I changed a whole bunch of stuff that we were doing.
All right. Well, after this, I'm going to go watch Raising Kanan, work on some music. I got for the kids some trap music and all that turn up music. Got to get that together. Got a show tonight with them, and then got a prom tomorrow. Hanging with my son. He just turned 20 yesterday. So we're going to hang out with him and my daughter, and we're going to go do something. And then Sunday, I'm going to chillax. I might do a pop-up mix. So
you'll do a mix?
Yeah.
Also, for Ricky Ryan, I just want to say, and that's true talent, friend. That's true talent. What I just did there, talent. You see that?
All right. Well, we're going to end on that note. Thank you all for tuning in to another Remix Morning Show. Renee, thanks for coming through. And Amber, thanks for doing what you do. You know what I'm saying?
Anytime.
Big up to our remixes. And we out of this piece. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.
All right. Let me throw a little something on here.
I'm screaming.
Let's not walk out of here with no music. There we go.